She didn't remember her first word, or her first steps, or the lullabies her mother used to hum at night. When she looked at family photos, it felt like watching someone else's life, smiling, playing, laughing. But the girl in those pictures didn't feel like her. Amara had lost her past to an illness no one saw coming. Her mind protected her by erasing what hurt, but in doing so, it erased nearly everything. And just when it seemed her story would remain blank, she started to paint. Not flowers, not fantasy, but places, people, moments that felt like echoes from another life. Everyone thought they were made up, until one painting stopped her mother in her tracks. A tiny house with red shutters, a crooked tree swing, and a porch light that flickered the way it used to back before the fire. Amara had painted a memory no one had shown her, a moment long gone, but never truly lost. What else was hiding in her hands? Amara was 17 when her life split in two. One moment she was walking to school, earbuds in, planning what to wear to prom. The next, she was waking up in a hospital bed, and the world no longer made sense. She didn't recognize the nurse, didn't know the woman crying by her bedside was her mother. She couldn't even remember her own birthday. The diagnosis was autoimmune encephalitis, a rare condition where the immune system attacks the brain. It had triggered a severe seizure, and with it, the quiet erasure of Amara's identity. The doctors explained that her procedural memory remained intact. She could still read, walk, and write, but the tapestry of her life, her childhood, friendships, family rituals, holidays, inside jokes, first crushes, had unraveled. It wasn't like forgetting, it was like never having known. Strangers would greet her like they'd missed her. She'd smile back politely, not wanting to hurt anyone. But inside, it was hollow. She'd sit at dinner tables surrounded by relatives, pretending she remembered a story they'd already told twice. Her mom would show her home videos. A little girl dancing in rain boots, baking cookies, blowing out candles. Amara would watch in silence. That girl had her face, but not her soul. At school, the rumors were cruel. She's faking it. She's trying to get attention. She doesn't even know who she is anymore. The truth was she didn't. And the worst part? She was afraid she never would again. Each night she'd lie in bed trying to piece herself together. She kept a journal, not to remember her past, but to remember her present, what she ate, who she saw, what she felt. But the pages stayed flat. There were no sparks, no flickers, just blankness. Until one rainy afternoon, her fingers reached for something new, not a memory, a brush. It started with color. She didn't plan it, didn't think. Her hand just reached for a brush, one rainy afternoon, while her mother napped in the next room. The canvas was blank, so was her mind. But somewhere deep inside, an image flickered. She dipped the brush into blue, then yellow, then green. She painted a house she didn't recognize, not from photographs, not from her dreams, but it felt familiar. Red shutters, slightly uneven, a crooked tree swing hanging from a low branch, a porch light just a little off center, the kind of details you couldn't invent without having seen them. She didn't speak as she painted, didn't explain why her hands knew what her mind had forgotten. She just followed the feeling. When she was done, she left the painting by the kitchen table, an afterthought. But when her mother walked in and saw it, she froze. Her face drained of color. Her mouth opened, then closed again. And for a long time, she didn't say anything. Finally, in a whisper, "Where did you see this?" Amara blinked. I didn't. I just painted it." Her mother's hands trembled as she touched the canvas. "This is your grandfather's house. The swing broke the year after we sold it. You were 5. Amara couldn't remember ever being there, but suddenly her chest felt tight, not from fear, but from recognition, like some part of her had been waiting for this. And it wasn't the last time. The next week she painted a yellow hallway, then a garden full of sunflowers, then a woman's hands, wrinkled, warm, holding a cup of tea. She didn't remember painting them afterward, but when she did, her mother would cry. And sometimes, so would Amara, because the memories weren't coming back through thought. They were coming back through creation. And suddenly, she wasn't just surviving, she was remembering. After that first painting, something changed. Amara didn't just want to paint, she needed to. Each canvas became a window into something lost. But more than that, it became a path forward. She transformed her bedroom into a makeshift studio. Tarps on the floor, brushes in glass jars, color palettes taped to the wall. Her mother gave her old photographs, not to force memories, but to inspire emotion. Sometimes Amara would glance at them once, and then paint something completely different. Not the photo, but the feeling. One day it was a birthday cake with 7 candles. Another, a dog with one floppy ear curled under a porch swing. She painted a blanket, blue and gold, frayed at the edges, then cried when her mom pulled it from the attic and wrapped it around her shoulders. Amara didn't remember the moments, but the paint gave her the emotion, like echoes of who she had been, filtered through her hands. Word began to spread. A teacher came by after school to see the gallery growing on her bedroom walls. Then a neighbor, then someone from a local wellness group who asked, "Have you ever thought of showing these?" She hadn't. The idea felt too vulnerable at first, but eventually she agreed to a small exhibit at the community center. They titled it Fragments: The Girl Who Painted Her Way Back. Visitors walked through in quiet awe. People she didn't know cried in front of her work, not because they understood her story, but because they saw pieces of their own. A woman touched a painting of 2 sisters at a train station and whispered, "I haven't seen that coat since mine died." A man stared at an old armchair and said, "My father used to read in one just like that." Amara stood in the back of the room, watching strangers connect with memories that weren't hers, but somehow were. And for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel blank, she felt full. Like she was becoming someone new, someone who could hold her past and her present at the same time. One brushstroke at a time, she wasn't just recovering lost moments. She was discovering who she truly was. But recovery, like memory, isn't linear. With every breakthrough came a shadow of doubt. Amara's paintings grew more intricate, more emotionally precise. But inside, she still felt fractured. Some days, she woke up in a fog so thick she couldn't even remember what she'd painted the day before. Other days, she questioned everything. Were these real memories? Or just wishful recreations? A reporter visited once for a human interest piece. Afterward, they wrote, "Teen channels trauma into art." But what if it's all imagination? The line stung, because it echoed a fear she barely admitted to herself, that maybe she wasn't reclaiming her past, just inventing a new one. She began to doubt her own instincts, started painting less, smiled more politely at compliments, but felt emptier inside. One night she stood in front of a blank canvas for 2 hours, brush in hand, Nothing came. She nearly gave up. That's when her younger cousin Lily crept into the room. Barefoot, shy, she pointed at a half-finished piece leaning against the wall. A painting Amara had started weeks ago, then abandoned. "Is that me?" Lily asked. Her voice was small. Amara blinked. "I don't know." Lily nodded. "It is. That's the day you taught me to draw the stars on the sidewalk." Amara stared. The sky in the painting was streaked with chalky constellations. In the bottom corner, a girl with curly hair holding a stub of white chalk. She hadn't remembered that, not consciously, but it had lived somewhere inside her. The tears came quietly, not from sadness, but from relief. Her gift wasn't about perfect recall. It wasn't about proving anything. It was about feeling what memory couldn't say. Amara picked up the brush again, and this time it didn't tremble. Amara's story didn't end with her remembering. It continued with her creating. Word spread, first locally, then across the country. A viral photo of her standing next to a painting titled "Before I Knew Me" began circulating in support groups, neurodivergent forums, and art therapy circles. Hospitals started requesting prints of her work for recovery rooms. Teachers asked her to speak, not just about trauma or art, but about trusting what the soul remembers even when the mind forgets. She launched a nonprofit called Canvas of Echoes, offering art kits and emotional healing workshops for survivors of memory loss, chronic illness, and trauma. The program didn't ask participants to remember, only to feel, to let their hands lead the way. Amara visited children's hospitals, drawing quietly beside kids too tired or scared to talk. She taught veterans how to capture moments they didn't have words for. She helped dementia caregivers find connection in images long gone from speech. And in doing so, she gave thousands of people a language they didn't know they had. But perhaps the most lasting part of her legacy was this. She redefined what it means to remember, not a perfect photo, not a flawless record, but a flicker of truth painted in emotion. She reminded the world that healing isn't always about going back. Sometimes it's about moving forward with grace, even if you can't name every step. Years later, Amara stood in front of her largest canvas yet. It wasn't a specific place, not a portrait or a scene, but layers of light and texture and color, faint shapes, soft edges, overlapping glimmers of warmth and shadow. She called it Becoming. It didn't tell one story, it whispered many. To most viewers, it was abstract. But to Amara, it was the closest thing she'd ever created to a self-portrait. Not of how she looked, but of how she felt. Incomplete, beautiful, in motion. Because over time, she'd come to understand something she wished someone had told her when she first woke up in that hospital bed. You are not just the memories you've lost. You are the love that found you anyway. You are the creativity that rose from the silence. You are the person you choose to become, brushstroke by brushstroke. And the truth is, we all forget. Moments fade, photos blur, names slip away. But feeling the heartbeat of a moment that can live forever in a single color, a single shape, a single canvas. And maybe, just maybe, we don't remember who we were so we can return to it. Maybe we remember so we can carry it forward. The gallery was quiet except for the soft rustle of footsteps. Children, parents, trauma survivors, memory loss, advocates, all stood before Amara's latest exhibit. The places I never knew I knew. The final painting stood at the center, a swirl of pastels over deep earth tones. No face, no form, just motion, just feeling. It was titled Home. A little girl tugged at her mother's sleeve. Did she remember all of that? The girl asked. Her mother looked down at her, then back at the painting. I don't think she remembered it like a story, she said. I think she felt it and turned it into something we could all remember. In the back of the room, Amara watched quietly, older now, a few silver strands in her hair, paint still under her fingernails. She no longer feared forgetting, because she knew now every emotion held in the body, every echo in the soul was a kind of memory too. She no longer needed to explain her past to belong to it. Instead, she honored it in brushstrokes and texture, in tears and laughter, in every person who saw themselves in her work and whispered, "Me too." And so her story wasn't one of loss, it was one of return, of reclaiming a voice she didn't know she had, not in words, but in color. If this story moves something inside you, a flicker of memory, a forgotten feeling, or simply the hope that healing is possible even when the path is unclear, you're not alone. We all carry moments we can't name, but that doesn't make them any less real, and it doesn't make you any less whole. So if you've ever felt lost in your own story, if you've ever wondered whether the pieces will come together, know this: they can, they will. And sometimes the most beautiful chapters are painted, not remembered. Share this story with someone who needs it. Let them know that even in silence, even in absence, there is a way back to yourself. Subscribe for more stories like this, of quiet courage, invisible strength, and the triumphs that don't always make headlines, but make us human. And in the comments, tell us what memory lives in your heart, even if your mind has let it go. We're listening, and we remember together.